In the late 1800s, many people decided to leave their homes due to crop failure, land and job shortages, rising taxes, and personal freedom from political and religious persecution. In hopes of seeking the American dream, people came from many parts of the world to come to the new lands and live a better life and have a brighter future. But as people came and lived this new life, it wasn't all that they expected it to be, and many people of different ethnicities, ages, and genders had to face a lot of pain and suffering and had many disadvantages. Going into this new world blind and clueless of what truly America had to offer was definitely a shock and disappointment, and they decided to stick with whatever they had because it was probably better than anything else they previously had. In times of desperate need for new life and new opportunities, people of all over the world came to America to seek the new and better life. Between 1900 and 1914, about 14 million people around the world immigrated to the U.S. seeking better life. 9 million people came from Europe, which was the majority of all the people that came. Most of them were farmers and went into hard labor jobs. Their hope was to accumulate enough money so they could bring it back home and support their family there. Most people went into the steel mill job. Steel, which was one of the biggest industries at the time. People on average worked about 12 hours a day and made less than $12 that entire week. 80,000 Japanese also came to the US. They faced hardships because they were different, and because they were so lonely, many formed communities and they were making money by fishing and farming. The majority of the Japanese population moved to LA, which was close to their home. The number of Mexicans working in the US tripled. Many of them moved to El Paso. They were the least respected and most underpaid. They really only made money by working in extremely dangerous mines and selling pekins. They were among the lowest paid people, making only a few dollars a week. In New York City, by 1914, millions of Jewish people came to work, and 200,000 worked in clothing factories alone. And the best made $16 a week. The unskilled people made $6 a week, and people below that made $2 to $3 a week. In 1911, at the women's clothing factory in the Triangle Shirtwaist Company, tragedy struck. There was a fire, and at the time, there was no fire evacuation plans, or fire hydrants, or sprinklers, and no way of escape. 146 women died in total by either being burned or jumped to their death. This kind of accident raised awareness for ways to deal with fire. And now, there are evacuation plans at every building and school, fire hydrants, sprinklers. A very few days of practical experience in this land of high wages had been sufficient to make clear to them the cruel fact that it was also a land of high prices, and that in the poor man was almost as poor as in any other corner of the earth. And so there vanished in a night all the wonderful dreams of wealth that had been haunting Jurius. What had made the discovery all the more painful was that they were spending, at American prices, money which they had earned at home rates of wages, and so were really being cheated by the world. The last 2 days, they had all but starved themselves. It made them quite sick to pay the prices that the railroad people asked them for food. There is work that profits children, and there is work that brings profit only to employers. The object of employing children is not to train them, but to get high profits from their work. Lewis Hine, 1908.
During the Progressive Era, immigrants from all around the world came to the United States to work, earn money, and have a better lifestyle. Although this was the case for some immigrants, many immigrants worked in harsh conditions and were underpaid at their jobs, and many of those immigrants lived in poor conditions because they weren't paid enough at their jobs to even afford a decent lifestyle. There were many labor opportunities for immigrants during the Progressive Era, which allowed them to work in areas such as meat processing factories, clothing, textile manufacturing, cigar making, and mining. Women usually were the ones working in the clothing and textile manufacturing. Unfortunately, many of these immigrants and women had to work in these factories which had poor working conditions, causing injuries and illnesses to the employees. Many people lost their jobs because they couldn't go to work due to them being sick or being injured, all because of the poor and dangerous conditions they had to work in. Not only immigrants and women took advantage of these new job opportunities, even children had to go to work during these times to help support their family. But with all the new job opportunities that had been available during these times, these immigrants, women, and children were willing to risk it all in order to have a better lifestyle for themselves and for their family.
There was no place for the men to wash their hands before they ate their dinner, and so they made a practice of washing them in the water that was to be ladled into the sausage.
Jungle explaining the working conditions in the meat processing factory.
Why, by compelling the females of New England to labor 13 hours per day in rooms heated by hot air furnaces and sleep on average from 6 to 10 in a room.
Explaining the working conditions females had to go through.
You would smile perhaps to see, but you would not smile if you knew all the story. This is the 5th year now that Jad has been engaged to Mick, and her heart is sick. They would have been married in the beginning, only Mick has a father who is drunk all day, and he is the only other man in a large family. Even so, they might have managed it but for cruel accidents which have been almost taking the heart out of them. He is a beef boner, and that is dangerous trade, especially when you are a piece work and trying to earn a bride. Your hands are slippery and your knife is slippery, and you are toiling like mad when somebody happens to speak to you or you strike a bone. Then your hand slips up on the blade and there is a fearful gash, and that would not be so bad only for the deadly. The cut may heal, but you never can tell.
During the Progressive Era, women didn't have the same rights as men. Government based on caste and class privilege cannot stand. Woman suffrage leader Elizabeth Cady Stanton wanted equal rights. Suffrage societies included WCTU, Farmers Alliance, and the Knights of Labor. In 1889, part of the first generation of women to attend college, Jane Addams graduated from Rockford College. 47% of colleges in 1890 admitted women. In 1870, 29% of undergraduates were women. In 1880, it was 32%, and in 1910, it was 40%. But even educated women at this time didn't have too many life choices: early marriage, teaching, nursing, or library work. Women were getting more of a voice in political situations, but still didn't get the right to vote until 1920. But the job and education opportunities for women increased a lot during the Progressive Era, thanks to protests and people who fought for equal rights. She was not fitted for it. No woman was fitted for it. No woman ought to be allowed to do such work. If the world cannot keep them alive any other way, it ought to kill them all at once and be done with it. They ought not to marry to have children. No working man ought to marry. If he, Jurgis, had known what a woman was like, he would have torn his eyes out first. He has endeavored in every way that he could to destroy her confidence in her own powers, to lessen her self-respect, and to make her willing to lead a dependent and abject life.
All in all, this time in American history just explains that life isn't fair and there are a lot of hardships. Either if you were an immigrant, a female, or a person of color, your chances of being successful and happy were basically impossible. These people didn't have a choice of what job they wanted or where they wanted to work. It was all just given to them. There was no freedom. The jobs they received were jobs of nightmares, but at least it gave them something to do, and there was no other choice but to deal with it. But the opportunities they were given were very rewarding and kept them alive. Not knowing what to expect as they arrived, they really knew how to push down the hate and negativity and just went with it. Because some of us wouldn't be here today if those people didn't make the hard sacrifices they made. That just shows how strong these people were in all the things they did.